Expelled Tennessee lawmakers get their jobs back, a court battle over an abortion pill, and an update on Donald Trump. That and more on this week's headlines. Welcome to America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell. The FBI has warned against using public phone charging stations. Apparently, hackers can use unguarded USB ports to insert malware and monitoring software onto cell phones and other devices. This might worry some of you. To that I say, relax. Without your phone charged, you'll live in the moment, take in your surroundings, and engage those around you in conversation. So go ahead and charge up your phone, because that sounds way worse than any little harmless identity theft. The Environmental Protection Agency has proposed new rules that would require over half of all new cars sold in the U.S. to be electric by 2030, and up to two-thirds to be electric by 2032. This is part of an aggressively ambitious goal to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And I gotta say, this sounds great if it weren't for the fact that U.S. infrastructure can't support it. Experts predict the U.S. need at least 1 million more charging stations by 2030 to match the rise in electric vehicle purchases. So, as usual, the government is trying to rush to a goal without taking the necessary steps first. This is like buying your daughter an electric car for her 16th birthday when you haven't even met her mother yet. This plan is about as well thought out as Bud Light trying to boost sales by rebranding to cater to the LGBTQ community. You know, instead of boosting their sales by making a beer that doesn't taste like the Pillsbury Doughboys used bathwater. Speaking of things leaving a bad taste in your mouth, the whole Tennessee 3 situation. After a mass shooting in Nashville at the end of March, 3 Democrat lawmakers in the Tennessee state legislature led a protest in the House chambers demanding more gun control regulations. This prevented lawmakers from conducting business that day. Their actions were a violation of several rules, so the 3, Justin Jones, Justin Pearson, and Gloria Johnson, were accused of disorderly behavior and stripped of committee assignments. Then, a vote was held over whether to expel them, and Pearson and Jones, who are black men, were kicked out, while Johnson, who is a white woman, wasn't. I'm not sure where that puts them all in the Victim Olympics. It's quite unusual for lawmakers to be expelled from a state legislature, especially for preventing the government from getting anything done since, well, it's not like it ever gets anything done in the first place. It's like accusing someone of preventing Ray Charles from driving a Tesla. He probably wasn't going to do it anyway on account of him, being dead. As you can imagine, some people had some strong opinions about the situation. President Biden said it was shocking, undemocratic, and without precedent. Tennessee House Republicans put out a statement defending their decision, saying the Tennessee 3's disrespectful and rule-breaking actions were unprecedented and led to unprecedented consequences. The Republicans also said the expelled legislators would be welcome back if they were elected again, but that they hoped they would be more respectful next time. They want respect in politics? I'd ask where they've been for the last 20 years, but realistically, it's never been much of a thing in politics. Politicians used to challenge each other to duels. I guess that shows progress. As divided as the U.S. is now, you don't hear any stories of politicians disagreeing, throwing pistols at each other's feet, and yelling, "One of us has to die now." Just 4 days after Justin Jones' expulsion, Nashville's governing council voted unanimously to reinstate him to the state house. And 6 days after Pearson's expulsion, he was reinstated by a unanimous vote from the Shelby County Board of Commissioners. The chairman of the Shelby County Commission said, "I believe the expulsion of State Representative Justin Pearson was conducted in a hasty manner without consideration of other corrective action methods. I also believe that the ramifications for our great state are still yet to be seen." Some politicians acted in a hasty, reactionary manner and will likely have negative effects. Why, that's basically the premise of 90% of the stories I cover. That might as well be the name of the show. Rolls right off the tongue, doesn't it? The expulsions also appear to have been short-sighted, since even if they weren't immediately reinstated, Pearson and Jones both said they would seek re-election in a few months and would get their seats back then. So this feels less like keeping decorum and more like silencing your opposition at worst and political theater at best. So you could call the Tennessee Republicans reactionary or even authoritarian. And with Tennessee Republicans trying to pass a bill that cuts the number of Nashville Council members in half, you can also call them power grabbers. But why stop there when you can also call them white supremacists? Jones blamed white supremacy for the fact that he and Pearson were expelled while Johnson wasn't. I just put out a list of things blamed for white supremacy. Now I have to update it again. Gloria Johnson agreed, explaining why she believes she wasn't expelled. I think it's pretty clear I'm a 60-year-old white woman, and they are two young black men. Although, it might have less to do with them being black and more to do with them being young. Jones and Pearson had only been in office for 3 months. In fact, Pearson was stripped of committee assignments despite being so new he hadn't even received any committee assignments yet. This was Johnson's 4th term, so she had a lot more tenure and likely knew those voting for her expulsion much better. And even still, she only survived expulsion by a single vote, and she was stripped of her committee assignments. Instead of immediately staging a disruptive protest, and instead of immediately expelling Jones and Pearson, both sides could have come together and had a discussion. You know, the entire point of having a House of Representatives? All this grandstanding and political theater just feels like a bigger missed opportunity than this product being called Google Glass when it should have been called Googly Eyes. It was right there. No wonder it failed. More after the break. Welcome back. And now an update on the Trump case. Which one? Yes. 2 weeks ago, Donald Trump was criminally indicted for alleged hush money paid to adult film star Stormy Daniels. This made him the first former president in history to be formally charged with a crime. He's facing 34 felony counts to which he pleaded not guilty. On top of that, Trump is suing his former attorney, Michael Cohen, for $500 million. Cohen was the lawyer at the center of the Stormy Daniels case, but this lawsuit has nothing to do with that, and is instead over allegedly breaching attorney-client privilege, among other issues. And on top of that, Trump appeared for a deposition in New York for a $250 million lawsuit filed by New York Attorney General Letitia James over alleged fraud in his real estate businesses. And on top of all of that, Trump is also facing a civil lawsuit from a woman who says he defamed her when he denied her allegation that he raped her years ago. His lawyers are seeking to delay the trial by a month due to him being preoccupied with his indictment. Whew. Did you get all that? I had to double check that it's April because trying to keep track of all the Trump court cases is like updating your March Madness brackets. The criminal indictment is the #1 seed, but I think we might see an upset with the civil suit. Speaking of Trump's cases, the House Judiciary Committee, led by Republican Jim Jordan, will hold a meeting next week to discuss the policies of Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg. Bragg is the attorney who indicted Trump over his alleged hush money to Stormy Daniels. He is accused of being soft on crime, leading to a rise of violence in New York. This hearing will feature victims of his policies. Bragg's office criticized this move, saying it was a retaliatory political stunt and that crime in New York City had actually dropped over the past year. Which it may have, but that's like a 600-pound guy bragging about losing 5 pounds. Good for you, but maybe keep hitting Planet Fitness. Meanwhile, Bragg is suing Jim Jordan in an attempt to block subpoenas Jordan may use to investigate Bragg's handling of the Trump indictment. He's claiming Congress is interfering with New York State's sovereignty over this case. Bragg even tried to get a restraining order against Jordan, although that was denied. Because that's how things work in America. Sue for everything. The courts are more tied up than last year's Christmas lights. Speaker of the House Kevin McCarthy said Alvin Bragg has irreparably damaged our country in an attempt to interfere in our presidential election. As he routinely frees violent criminals to terrorize the public, he weaponized our sacred system of justice against President Donald Trump. So Republicans are accusing Bragg of weaponizing the justice system. Democrats are accusing Republicans of weaponizing Congress. And on the bright side, considering how extensively I've covered how ill-prepared the U.S. is for war, it's nice to see them able to weaponize something. If the U.S. goes to war with China, the military can just send in all these weaponized branches of the government. War is such a dark topic. Let's move on to something lighter. Abortion. Man, that transition never gets old. Just like the fetuses that were. You have the parts to that joke, assemble it on your own. A Texas judge invalidated the Food and Drug Administration's 23-year-old approval of the abortion pill mifepristone, one of the most common methods of abortion. The judge gave the FDA 7 days to appeal the ruling. Tangent. Is it just me, or does mifepristone sound like a type of pasta? Try the new mifepristone Alfredo at the Olive Garden. When you're here, your family won't get any bigger. The Justice Department and the manufacturers of mifepristone requested an appeals court to halt the judge's decision, which could have made the drug unavailable starting yesterday. And President Biden called this move by the judge unprecedented. Between this, a former president being indicted, and lawmakers being expelled, I'm a little tired of all these unprecedented things happening all at once. It's pretty sad that I hear about a mass shooting and my first thought is finally something precedented in the news. The Texas ruling was immediately contradicted by a judge in Washington who ruled that the FDA wouldn't be allowed to make any changes to the availability of mifepristone. A federal appeals court ruled that mifepristone can still be sold, but not through the mail, and that it can't be used as late in a pregnancy. This case will likely wind up in the Supreme Court. In the meantime, House Democrats reintroduced the Protecting Reproductive Freedom Act, which would give the FDA's approval of abortion drugs precedence over state laws. Ah, precedent. You're speaking to me on that one. We'll have to wait and see how this all plays out. It's hard to say. Abortion is such a divisive topic that no one's even sure if judgments for and against it can be brought to term. And after the break, Democrats want to investigate Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. Welcome back. According to a report from ProPublica, Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas has for over 20 years received luxury trips from conservative billionaire Harlan Crow without reporting them. Justices are required to file gifts they receive, including transportation, on financial disclosure reports. Crow donated millions to Republicans over the years, and he let Thomas fly on his private jet, use his private yacht, and vacation at his private resort. Democrats on the Senate Judiciary Committee asked U.S. Chief Justice John Roberts to investigate this seeming violation of ethics, saying, if the court does not resolve this issue on its own, the committee will consider legislation to resolve it. If Thompson is impeached and removed from his position, that would be, you guessed it, unprecedented. Seriously, can we just get some run-of-the-mill stories? Like some politicians acting in a hasty, reactionary manner and likely having negative effects? Thomas defended not disclosing these trips, saying, early in my tenure at the court, I sought guidance from my colleagues and others in the judiciary and was advised that this sort of personal hospitality from close personal friends who did not have business before the court was not reportable. So he's saying these trips on a private jet weren't used to bribe or influence him. It was just a close personal friend being hospitable. That's a little hard to believe, because my best friend won't even let me borrow his '92 Honda Civic, which is upsetting since Ryan Reynolds can definitely afford to buy another one. I thought we were bros, Rai. Also, Harlan Crow allegedly collects Nazi memorabilia and has a series of statues depicting dictators in his garden. Why did I decide to cover the news again? California lawmaker Jasmeet Bains was removed from an assembly committee after being the only Democrat to vote against Governor Gavin Newsom's bill that would punish oil companies for making too much profit. Newsom's bill to punish oil companies for price gouging seems great in theory. However, many fear that it could cause oil distributors to do less business in California, creating less supply and driving prices up even higher. But that would never happen. I mean, when has California ever screwed something up while meaning well? Seriously, has that ever happened? Just name one example. Just one. I'll wait. Bains represents a region that produces 70% of California's oil. She said, while I am disappointed, I remain firm in my commitment to serve the interests of the people I was elected to represent. I look forward to continuing to work with the Speaker and my colleagues to expand access to health care, provide good-paying jobs, and ensure our communities are safe. Yeah, that won't be awkward. This is like trying to stay friends with your ex that you work with. Also, it's worth noting that Baines is South Asian, so was her expulsion also white supremacy? Or is that just something Republicans can do? Even black ones, apparently. It's pretty alarming that there are stories about both Democrats and Republicans expelling lawmakers for disagreeing with them. That's not how democracy is supposed to work. And I know that's not how democracy is supposed to work because this is all, you guessed it, unprecedented. You know what? Not being subjected to all this unprecedented news might be nice for a bit. Maybe don't charge your phone after all. Not even your googly eyes. So what do you think about the stories we covered this week? Leave your comments below. And if you want to help us deliver nonpartisan news, be sure to support America Uncovered by going to patreon.com/AmericaUncovered. All it takes is as little as $1 or more per episode to fight YouTube's censorship and demonetization. We rely on your support to help us keep making great episodes. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thanks for watching America Uncovered.